is another game I like that I've never reviewed before. How do I keep doing this? There is a tutorial, but it only tells you the simple stuff. Moving, mining. First, create a character. Customize the look, select a difficulty. Difficulty only changes what happens when you die. You either lose your cash, your items, or your whole character. It doesn't actually make the game any easier. Then, create a world. Adjust its size. It don't make it too big. Medium is pretty big for a single player, only go large if you're doing multiplayer. You can also choose which evil you want, corruption or crimson. Corruption is easier. Guess which one I chose? Also, because you create your character and the world separately, your character can be loaded into a different world, meaning you can carry both them and all their inventory between one place and another. How many games let you do that? Not enough. Terraria is a side-scrolling platformer, also a crafting survival game. The world is made of blocks, much like Minecraft. Controls are nice and compact, moving and aiming on the thumbsticks, jumping and attacking on the triggers. Everything is in easy reach. You start with simple copper tools. It's fine for fending off forest slimes, but you'll need better fairly quickly. Add to that, you start with no armour and very low health. Yeah, you're not going to last very long out there. Especially at night. You're going to need somewhere comfortable to cower in fear. Wander around, cut down some trees, in the time-honoured tradition of all crafting games everywhere, and use them to build a shelter. You may have noticed an NPC wandering around as well. This is the guide. And if you want to keep him safe as well, you'll need to make sure your shelter is actually a house, so he knows he can take up residence there at night. There's some simple rules for making a house. Of course, when I say simple, I mean the rules the game tells you about are simple. 99% of the time, all you need to do is completely enclose an area in blocks or doors, fill in the back wall, and add a table, chair, and light source. Simple! If only. Other rules the game doesn't tell you about include the area can be enclosed by platforms or trapdoors. Holes in the back wall must be no bigger than 4x4. The back wall must be player made. The internal area must be between 60 and 750 tiles. Both chairs and tables can be exchanged for other furniture as can the light source. The door is not necessary unless you want the NPC to go in and out. The house cannot be too close to an evil biome. The house cannot be too close to the edge of the world. The NPC must have 3 solid blocks to stand on at night. Opening a door inwards invalidates the 3 blocks it covers and potentially invalidates the room for as long as the door stays open. Do you think that's enough fucking rules? I'm not making any of this shit up. The reason the rules are so complicated, by the way, is to stop random locations in the world from accidentally becoming valid housing. But they can also be a massive pain in the arse. For example, this room is valid housing. This room is invalid. Spot the difference. It's the floor. There needs to be 3 solid blocks for the NPC to stand on, but there's only 2 here and they're not next to each other. Seriously, this game has 2 bloody minded features and this is one of them. It doesn't even tell you what the problem is. Well, unless the problem happens to be that you're just missing a table. So, assuming you get your house built properly, somehow in the face of all this, you should be safe for your first night. Both zombies and demon eyes are a bit too much at the start. To get better gear, you'll need to dig for ore. Getting underground is easier in this game because it's a side scroller. That allows you to see a little way past the walls around you. Find a natural passage or just aim downwards with the pickaxe. Once you have some ore, you need to refine it to bars. For that, you'll need a furnace, which means you'll have to contend with the game's crafting system, which is the game's second bloody-minded feature. Okay, the crafting itself is fine, but the crafting menu will only display things you can make if A, you already have all the required ingredients, and B, are standing in front of the correct crafting bench. So, if you, for example, want to craft a furnace, you need stone, wood, and torches. If you just happen to have too few pieces of wood, because you use the rest to build your shelter, the game won't display the furnace on the build menu, even though it's well within your capabilities to make. To find out what you can actually make, you have to show the guide an item from your inventory. He will then tell you what you can make with it. So, show him stone, and that's a lot of things I can make with stone. After the furnace, you need an anvil. Now, usually you need iron bars for things like this. So, you make an iron bar, ask the guide what you can do with it, and holy crap, how many? It's the same problem with potions. I mean, to make the full-size healing potion, first, you need to take some sand and turn it into glass. Then you need to take the glass and turn it into bottles. Then, bottles plus gel plus a mushroom makes the lesser healing potion. 2 lesser healing potions plus a glowing mushroom makes the full-size healing potion. Which I know off the top of my head because I've done it a fair few times. But if you're just starting out, you won't know this. And you can't show the guide a full-size healing potion because it won't tell you anything. You can't reverse engineer things. He will only tell you what the next step is, not what the previous ones are. This system is fucking horrible for newcomers. I haven't been on this game for ages, but I have been on it before, and it was confusing the hell out of me. Apparently, the crafting system on console has been altered to be much more like the PC version, because allegedly they didn't use the same crafting system at first. They've definitely made it worse. And just as you're getting used to all that, boom! Ambush boss! Yeah, the Eye of Cthulhu appears when your health and armour reach a certain level. Ready or not, here it comes. When the game first released, the basic materials were copper, iron, silver, gold. Later on, they introduced tin, lead, tungsten and platinum. They were slightly better than the originals, but roughly equivalent. If copper is a level 1 material, then tin is like a level 1.2. But for some reason they decided that your world is only going to have 4 of these 8 materials at a time. I mean, why bother having 8 if you're not going to use them all? They decided that copper and tin, roughly equivalent to each other, but you're only going to have one of them. It doesn't make any sense. Yet another baffling decision by the developers. As you explore, you'll need to be a bit careful. It's all too easy to fall to your death in the enormous underground caverns. Other causes of death are available. Eventually, you'll come across various pieces of equipment that enable much easier movement, such as ropes, double jumping, grapples, and climbing gear. To advance beyond basic material weapons, armour and tools, you'll need a stronger pickaxe to mine the tougher stuff. And again, this may prove to be a bit of a stumbling block for the new player, because the only way to get a nice new shiny pickaxe that can mine the tougher stuff is to acquire a unique item drop from the boss of your evil biome. But you kinda need to know that. Beyond asking the guide for crafting information, you can ask for general advice, which changes depending on how much progress you've made. So it's not as if the game leaves you totally clueless, but you typically have to click the advice button a lot before it'll tell you specifically what you're trying to find out. In this case, entering the corruption and using either purification powder or explosives will grant me access to the orbs. Break 3 orbs to summon the Eater of Worlds. Excuse me. The material it drops will make the Nightmare Pickaxe, and that will allow me to mine Meteor and Hellstone. This is the kind of game you might want the wiki site open for. There's a wide variety of biomes: forests, caves, desert, snow, jungle, ocean, evil, dungeon, underworld, floating islands, and various underground versions of most of the surface ones. Something which has consistently impressed me since day one: fluids actually flow. See, normally in these kind of games, either you or the game puts down a source block and the water just kind of, flows outwards from it a short distance, you know what I mean? Here, fluids actually move through the world realistically, even going as far as to obey the rules of pressure head, for crying out loud. It's bloody impressive stuff. It means if a fluid is in your way, you can cut a channel for it to escape, and it realistically will. It's particularly useful if you're trying to get lava out of your way. Housing 3 NPCs in a relatively confined area will create a town. Towns are peaceful and enemies will not spawn there. Well, unless there's an event or an invasion happening or something, in which case they just gate crash the place. which means you would do well to defend the town with some well-placed defences and traps. A good old pit with a 1-block overhang is a very efficient way to stop zombies in their tracks. Towns can also have fast travel pylons installed, if you've bothered to place NPCs in different biomes, which I didn't here. But I could. If I'd been thinking ahead, I could have. If you've learned anything from the boss fights so far, you'll know that your character can't manoeuvre on the bloody ground, so build an arena ahead of time. Give yourself a sporting chance. Defeating Skeletron outside the dungeon will unlock access to the dungeon. Inside, you'll find the mechanic. She'll sell you everything you need to make more advanced traps and mechanisms. Do you know, I cannot begin to fathom how some people enjoy gardening. It's just not my thing at all. And yet, gardening is always the first thing I try to do in a crafting survival game. Conan Exiles, it takes way too long to get access to the planter. There are 7 types of herbs and they'll only grow in certain types of grounds typically, or you can just shove them in pots anywhere you like, even underground, except the water leaf. That only blooms in direct rain, so I had to stick it on the roof. Fishing! You can go fishing! For fish! Or boxes. There are some optional bosses you don't have to fight but can. Some bosses, depending on the circumstances, can surprise ambush you. Killing too many slimes during Slime Rain summons King Slime. Entering the snow biome during a snowstorm summons Deer Clops. Destroying the whatever that thing is summons Queen Bee. And the ultimate boss of the game? The Wall of Flesh. And when you beat it, you'll discover that it's actually not the ultimate boss of the game. And when you beat it, the game enters hard mode. The game world suddenly spawns all these tougher enemies. These good and evil biomes suddenly appear and start spreading like a contagion. And they can completely overwrite existing biomes making their unique drops impossible to get. I don't fancy doing this, like, ever. I've done it a few times, but it always, to me, feels like I'm breaking the world. It does change it irreversibly. It's a good job your character and the world aren't tied together. Once you know how the crafting system thinks, once you get into the habit of asking the guide for advice, once you get a handle on how progression works, the game is very good. There's just some stumbling blocks early on. The game is too complicated for its own damn good sometimes. Complicated in terms of its systems, I mean. Crafting and progression in particular is opaque and potentially hard to grasp for the uninitiated. But there's no denying the sheer range of biomes, enemies, tools, power-ups, features, all of which I have nowhere near enough time to discuss. The breadth of options is seemingly limitless. Some people might be put off by the 2D nature of the game. Minecraft's in 3D, You don't know what you're missing. My design work is not the best, I realise that. I'm more function over fashion. But I gave it a go. That's Terraria. It's a more complicated game than I remember. It's certainly more complicated than when I started playing it, both for good reasons and for bad. But it's still definitely worth a play in my opinion. Right, that'll do for this video. What did you think of it? Leave a like or dislike down below. What did you think of Terraria? Have you been playing it this entire time and do you already know all these changes? Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. And for those of you who can't get enough of my dulcet tones, you can always subscribe or ring the bell for notification. That's a separate thing. Or if you want to inflict my irritating persona on someone else, you can always share instead. See you next time.